of our Lenten devotionals between Lena UMC and Good Shepherd Lutheran. We are, that was take two. Whole discussion. Ask us about it. Anyway.
Yeah, we're not releasing that one.
Yeah, we are having fun, even though it is Lent, a time of reflection as we go through various emotions that we are having. If you joined us last week, we got to rip up things with anger.
Yep.
And talked about how our anger is something that can eat away at us, but also something that can be worked for good.
Yep.
And so
anger is not a bad thing, and that's, I think I learned, anger is a part of the emotions gift from God.
Yeah.
So that anger itself is not a bad thing, but we need to know what we are angry at, and we can really get those to God, like Habakkuk did.
Mm-hmm.
God answers. So that's kind of things. And last week, we aren't sure about the Habakkuk, the Maya prophet. I checked out my book. And it said here, Habakkuk is 7th century BCE, counterpart with Jeremiah.
There we go.
We've
done our homework.
We thought we are older than that. Like he was not that old. So that's it. All right, move on.
Yeah, so this week, our emotion that we're dealing with is grieving.
Oh, grieving.
Yeah, which is a very sad emotion.
Actually, it's so timely.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I have had a lot of funerals, and it's been very hard because we've had such limited numbers of people that a lot of us haven't had our rituals for grieving.
Or to, visit someone's house, sit there with having coffee or tea with a little cookie to spend the time with the family. Or with, bring those lasagna to them type of thing. It's really limited what we can now, so it is harder to deal. I mean, it was hard before, but it's us to do differently, which makes the grieving extra, adding up to it.
Yeah, and I've heard people describe it as, it's hard to face the reality of death when you don't have our rituals for dealing with it. And that's just death. And there's so many other things that we're grieving right now. I was thinking, we have a whole group of children who are beginning their elementary school, or like beginning kindergarten. Hi. So our kindergartners out there, like this is their first time going to like big kid school, right? And they have all of these expectations that their parents have been telling them about what kindergarten's about. And it's completely changed this year. Like their first impression of school is this weird, like sometimes we have school and sometimes we have to do it at home, and then we have a whole group of freshmen. Like high school is all about the activities. Like, teachers, I know you think it's about what you do in the classroom, but high school is about all the other stuff, right?
I don't know.
And like, their freshman year, their first year of experiencing being a high schooler is, thrown up in the air. And then our seniors, high school seniors, so even from our young folk, all the way up to our older folk who can't see their grandkids because of the risk. It's like all of us, no matter what age, are in these stages of just our life being completely upended and really not having good spaces to deal with all of that loss and that pain and grief.
This is just my contact lens.
Yeah.
So, it's not like I was so moved to it. It's my contact lens bothering now in one side.
But I'm chopping onions too. No.
That gets to both sides. It's just one. It's just like looking like this. No, but I think you point out a good point about grieving is something lost, or that's the expectation that what we put ourselves on it's not meeting and feels like it's lost.
Yeah.
I think that's what grieving is, and it can come exactly. We understand, like you describing about the school, the kids, which I think the grieving was, it's not just the kids. I think I see more the adults and parents who had, this is the way the school was always been, and this is not the way I'm seeing. That's a loss, because maybe, your experience of school is not your thing. That your expectations failed. That's, it's the kind of loss. And I gave an example of, like, it's not just the grieving happen, something sad and bad things happening, or the tragedy. Grieving, we can grieve when we change the job. Because our routines are messed up. Our routines, and it's exciting. And at the same time, we know it's not the same. And that part of the process they're not the same, to recognize it, to get to adapting this new way of doing things. That's the period of here to there is also grieving time. Like when I moved around in town, from the one apartment to another apartment to another one, each time my move from 1-bedroom to 2-bedroom apartment, well, was a good thing because my husband is coming, so I needed more space. So that was a good reason of the moving. But that, once I moved, that made further for me to get to the church, and I have to adjust the new life with husbands be around all the time. It's not bad with my husband. It's just, it's just the whole...
Just to be sure. You heard that, right? It's not bad with you. Okay, go on.
Maybe it's his fault, but anyway. But it's the changing of those time was so hard. I did not realize how tired I was and how difficult to adjusting.
Yeah.
With the new location, the commute changed to 30 minutes, 5 minutes to commute to the church to 30 minutes commute to the church. And all those parts of the life, and my husband's like, why can't we go here and there on the weekend? Oh, I'm busy with get my sermon done by Sunday. I'm working on Sunday, honey. So that kind of the part of the, but that was grieving as well, because I was trying to, I know that's the right things to do, and trying to adjust that part of the life. And we can grieve in move to the college. We can grieve to, the marriage. I mean, that's, the some of the change in the happening in here and there. I mean, we grieve. So grieving the part of it.
And what's hard is that I think when you're grieving for positive things, you feel like you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, if you got married, everybody thinks you're supposed to be happy.
Of course not.
But the reality is, yes, you're happy, but there's also a lot of change that just happened in your life, and things that are upheavaled. And when you have a new baby, everybody thinks you're supposed to be excited and happy. But I tell you, I've talked to parents at 2 a.m. in the morning when the baby has cried and has not slept more than a half an hour straight.
Yeah. It's like already exhausted, and it's additional physical exhaustion with like the baby dictates what the life to be.
Yeah.
Or you have the caregiver. You become the caregiver.
Yeah. And your whole identity changes, and and so even things that are good, have losses associated with them. And so we thought that this week we would just take time to acknowledge all of those losses and have a way that we can name things that we're grieving, name things that we miss, that we long for, that hurt, that maybe we haven't been able to acknowledge much. So that's our theme for this week.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and grieving can be not just one thing; it can compound or extend it. So, and reading some of the books about the grieving, that's what you do in the pandemic time. And that's what they're telling. It's only way. So we grieve the loss, things not the way it was. The only way to get out from this grieving mode is to grieve. it's a process if we grieve it over and over and over again. That grieving, working of the grief, it's the only way we see the hope and light out there. So that's why it's important we do actually grieve. And give the time and space to do. And I'm glad you're doing this because it's a work. This is not like quick solution and you take this one pill and get everything done. No, this is the process of it, but we really need to take time to do this. It requires a time, requires your energy. But if we do this, we can see the hope out there. So being honest is important too. So what's the reading then?
We're in Luke. But I just want to say, like, the length of time, I think, I think that's why Lent is so long. We're 40 days plus Sunday, and that's like 6 weeks. And so,
Luke.
Yes.
Lent is 40 days so that fishers and fish market can make money out of it. And we eat fish on the Fridays.
Oh,
that's why
so
we have
I'm
to
so
have
excited
that.
about fish fry. Oh.
That's why it's Lent. It's 40 days. And then those who like to eat meat, then you can go back eating meat after that.
But those of us who like fish, I love this time of year.
Because the restaurant has a special on those on Fridays.
But the problem is, if I'm eating fish on Fridays because I like fish, is it really a discipline?
If you remember why you're eating fish on Friday.
Okay.
Because that's the discipline part of it.
All right, because I like fish, so.
Good.
All right.
So I just
Shall we get to Luke? Okay. We're in Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 16.
Oh, in the middle of the Luke. What is this?
Shall I read it, or do you want to read it?
Go ahead and read it.
Okay.
I chose this Bible verse. The reason is, this is a verse, in my preaching class, this is the first assigned Bible verse I worked on. My class worked on. So that's why it's like, when I hear the greeting, this story comes quick. So, but yeah, go ahead and read it.
Okay. Soon afterwards, he, that being Jesus, went to a town called Nain.
That's what we said.
Nain.
That's it in English. Go ahead.
All right. And his disciples and a large crowd went with him. As he approached the gate of the town, a man who had died was being carried out. He was his mother's only son, and she was a widow. And with her was a large crowd from the town. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion for her and said to her, "Do not weep." Then he came forward and touched the bier, and the bearers stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, rise." The dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized all of them, and they glorified God, saying, "A great prophet has risen among us, and God has looked favorably on his people."
Thanks be to God.
Amen.
So as I mentioned that this was a assigned one. I really do not remember what I preached on in the class. I really don't what I focused on at all. But this reading, if I read now, it's just so different to me. In a way, I think about the young man who died, leaving mother behind. And first I thought, people just, the young man died. But I start wondering about the reason. Was he sick for a long time and this is anticipated death? Still, it hurts. But it's this anticipated death. Or was it an accident? Or was it a commit suicide? Because those part of the factors also makes a difference with just a mother who are there by herself, with the crowd, the community was with her to grieve. But I just think about the life of this mother and what she's at this point. So those are the kind of the question never occurred when I was in seminary.
What struck me was a large crowd went with Jesus, and then a large crowd from the town was with her. And that struck my own grief, quite frankly.
How so?
Because one of the ways that we get through our grief is to support one another. And when one of us is just too exhausted to go on, we often rely on somebody else to kind of pick us up and keep us going, and to help us reconnect. And that's kind of been taken away from us in a way. I mean, yes, we can still call and we can send letters and flowers and but that gets back to, yes, we have other ways, and yes, some of them are better than they were before, and yet we still have the loss of our usual traditions and the loss of our large crowds.
Yep.
And that help us. When I think about our congregation here, we wouldn't have been able to give a potluck to this to the woman and her family. Because we can't eat together after a funeral. And that's one of the ways that our large crowd would show our love for the family and let her know that she may be widowed, but she's still one of us. She has a whole family. And so the loss of all of us of not being able to give her that, of not being able to show our love in a potluck dish, and having to come up with different ways of doing that. So that's what struck me differently this time in reading the story.
Because
was the communal grief.
We do not have the crowd thing.
Right.
And physically, we do not have the crowd thing.
Yeah.
That is a very interesting point. I don't know, because grieving is not just a day thing. This woman needs the support from the life throughout after this for years and years. So that it's easier. What I often say is that the time during the funeral, that time is the families are fine because they have enough people around all the time.
But it's afterwards.
But after those people went home, left alone, and the grief hits in the moment of just eating the breakfast, that you fix the oatmeal, then put in there, and not realizing you're actually fixing for two. You have extra more meal than you needed. Or you find that moment of, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, all those times, the one seat, which always the grandpa sits there. Grandpa is not there. And seat is nobody is going to take the seat, or somebody else is sitting there. Those are the time really hit the grief, that no clear sense of the person is not there. And those are the time, the people's attentions are short, my attentions are short, and moves around and forget about those times and those people. But this story, to me, it's such the experience this woman had, that Jesus was there for that woman. It was that only one-time moment thing, but that memory of that experience, the woman can go on. This son eventually died afterwards, as well as the woman. I don't know this son died before this woman or not. We don't know. The Bible does not tell that part of the story. But the memory of Jesus there, compassionately be with the women, telling, don't grieve, I'm here. And the son was returned to her. Maybe for a couple of days. Who knows how long that son lived afterwards. Mm-hmm. But that care she received from Jesus, that memory, hopefully gave her just a little something to go the next day. Yeah. It's kind of, it's really hard. And I've seen or met the people who lost their child. The adult child, it's really the adult child that, and the parents wondering, I should have gone ahead of them. And don't talk much about it, but still carrying that part. Yeah. And occasionally comes around those parts of the pain. And it's really never get over it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it just shows grief has so many other emotions wrapped up in it. Because I think a lot of times a surviving parent has a feeling of guilt. Mm-hmm. Or a surviving spouse or a surviving sibling. Like why me, and
what did we do wrong?
What did I do to cause this, or even why did I get to live and not them?
Why we couldn't prevent that one?
Right, and
it doesn't make any sense. It's not fair.
It may not be logical, but it's a real emotion. I think a lot of times we do feel that, and a lot of times there's going back to last week, there's anger. Like, how dare you leave me here alone? Anger at the person, anger at God for taking them away, just all kinds of just built up anger at a situation you can't change. So all of that, in addition to the like sadness and loss that we usually think of with grieving. So, what got me, in addition to the ones I said before, was Jesus reached out and touched her pain. He touched the thing they were carrying the guy on, right? But in doing so, and reaching out and touching her son, he touched that woman's pain. Mm-hmm. Got right to it. Was not afraid, if I remember right, good Jews like Jesus were not supposed to touch dead people, right?
Dead people, dead animal. No.
Right.
No.
You're just not supposed to do this.
Because you defile yourself and then you have to cleanse afterwards.
Right. And so, for him to not at all be afraid about that and to go right to that source of pain, that source of taboo, of shame in a way, of uncleanliness, and just walk right up and touch it,
I wonder if he just thought about it ahead of time. Or it's just...
Oops, too late now.
Or it's just something, sometimes we don't know why we did it.
Yeah,
situation.
you just had to.
It's just like something moved to do stuff. And we had those moments. Whether that was right or not, but it's just like, during this pandemic time, we know we shouldn't be. We are 6 feet apart and don't get anywhere close. And we try that. But there are those times that there's somebody really needed the hug.
Yeah.
And we risk that. I know some of the people know it's risk. It might risk me to be in a quarantine for the, 14 days or 10 days afterwards. But there are some of those moments that we have to cross it, some of those, and took the rest of the cleansing time or the quarantine time afterwards. Because that's what Jesus did. And Jesus in us moves us to do such a thing. Mm-hmm. Some stupid, dumb things in other ways. But, That's what we do. Okay, we are not talking about grief right now. Okay, we better do the
Go back to
activity
grief.
now.
Yeah.
So that we can get down this week's video.
Okay.
So, okay, that was.
You get my.
So I need to get the paper off.
Yeah. So
cutting out now.
If you have the devotion that you either printed or picked up at the church building, which if you don't have them yet, we have them available at both buildings. So you have to get over here to Mason Street. Oh! Making a mess.
That's why I'm doing it in Methodist Church.
Stacy, if you see this, we're sorry for the mess.
That's why I'm doing it at the Methodist Church. Otherwise, I told you like.
Well, fortunately, Stacy really likes to clean.
Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate what you do. Okay, I got myself in.
So.
Okay.
But we have packets that you can pick up, or if you want to follow along, you just need a pot and some dirt. And then you can print out a devotion, or you can just get some scrap paper. And what we are doing is on your piece of paper, you want to write down those things that you're grieving right now. So what are you grieving? And what things do you feel like you've lost? And so by writing them down, we're naming and claiming our grief, giving word to them, allowing Jesus to reach out and actually touch them. So spend some time writing down your griefs.
So we do quick. So
yeah.
That's for the video wise. Yeah. Can get. Shall I pause this time of the video?
Well, this gives them time to write too.
So that the people can have time to. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're writing along with us, write down. But we'll write fast. So you can pause us while you're writing, and then you'll have lots of time.
I think so. That would be a good idea. Okay, once I'm reading. Give me one more, then I'll finishing up. Mm-hmm. Or you can start doing it.
Okay. I'll tell you what we're doing as Mia is finishing. And again, if you need more time, just pause me and listen to me later. So what we do is once we have all of our griefs written on there, which I'll just share one of mine. You probably can't see it. There we go. I got it. You might not be able to see it. Anyway, when I wrote letters to my family as a kid, I would always put this little drawing on them of like hands reaching out with like a little hug. I really miss live hugs. That little drawing doesn't cut it. So I miss hugs. So that's just an example of one of the things I'm grieving. But once you get all of your griefs on there, then we take them and we rip them. And one of the ways grief is expressed often in scriptures is with the rending of clothing. And so you'll read that often where one of our biblical characters will rip their clothing in grief. And so you may think of that as just that tearing, which is what grief feels like. And then once you get it in little pieces, we will add our grief to our pot.
Okay, I got mine. some of the things I did was this past Monday, our beloved, my beloved mentor and pastor in this area, retired pastor in this area, he passed away, got the note about it. And I know it was anticipated. But, still it hurts. And it was a hard day. And sharing that news to our members, somebody who was so close to him, the pastor, that was also hard. To deliver that kind of news, it's a hard thing. I know I need to do it, so I did it. But myself is also grieving. And try to see some of the devotion book, the next day's devotion book tells, seeing God face to face. And that word, it's a word of comfort right now for me to remember he is seeing God face to face now. But still, I'm not moving and now, so I'll bear in mind those. The other things I wrote is Asian grocery store shopping.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh,
I'm waiting my husband to get the both vaccine done, and so I sent him for grocery shopping for me.
Do you have to go all the way to Naperville, or do you have a little bit closer?
Naperville is a good one. It's like we probably try. We can also go to Arlington Heights. We can also, closer to Chicago, there's some of those. But I can also go to Valley Produce in State Street in Rockford.
Okay.
They have some. I like the grocery store. I miss not going there.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I can live with it.
All
God
right.
provides.
So then we take some dirt.
Can you pour some in mine, please?
Yep. And as we...
Because I probably will make another further mess than I should not.
As we cover up our sadness, which I need to put less dirt in there, or I'm going to run out of space in 6 weeks.
Well, you got that jealous from now on. Or you change the pot to a bigger one. Because our anger and grief are huge.
It's huge, yes. So as we're covering them up, we remember that we are not alone.
Yep, Jesus. Remember the story. Jesus moved and have the compassionate to this woman. And that same Jesus, compassion to us as well. So we do the prayer. So the prayer is coming out from our beloved hymn, what a friend we have in Jesus. So we will read the verse 1 of the what a friend we have in Jesus. If you're at home by yourself and nobody is listening, you're welcome to sing. Let us pray. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to hear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. Oh, because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Well, friends, we will see you next week. What we are doing next week?
I forgot to look. So no.
Next week is upsetting. Upsetting. That sounds good. All right. Well,